I like fantasy, I like games with a strong narrative element, and especially I like to play more often than I can go to game nights or host game nights. I'm a family man, I have a job, I have two daughters, so I cannot go out for games as often as I want to play. So very often I play solitaire games. And I'm happy when I can find solitaire dungeon crawlers, solitaire fantasy games, solitaire games that have a strong narrative element. One such game is Crypt of Veritas, a game in the Pocket Dungeon system. I discovered it recently on the RPG Now website, a great source of print and play games, and this is how I acquired this game. I purchased it for $2. I printed it. It's like 4 sheets of paper, and that's all that you need to play. Well, you don't need to print more stuff. You'll still need like a pencil and a die or two. But so it's pretty minimalistic. Crypt of Veritas, a solitaire adventure. You will take control of a single hero, a human, elf, dwarf, or halfling, whichever you want, or whichever other race you can think of. You could be a blue troll from space, blue troll, so like a very large smurf, because it really doesn't matter. The classes, the races have no effect on the game. It's simply there to add some flavor and fake depth to the game. There's some depth, which is that of the dungeons. It's a very simple game. It's not deep in any sense. It is meant to be a light, entertaining adventure, a fun romp that allows you to go down the dungeon, find some monsters, loot some treasures, and defeat the big bad boss, which is the point of the game. In Crypt of Veritas, Veritas is the name of the leech that lives at the bottom of the dungeon, and you're trying to defeat him. You go down the dungeon, you defeat Veritas, and you leave. If you're able to do so and survive, then you win the game. If you die, guess what? You don't win the game. So you create a character using a character record, a character sheet, and then during the game also you will draw a map. On this grid here. I really wish that they had put the character sheet and the grid on the same sheet of paper, so you only need to make a copy of one sheet of paper to have both things. Here you have basically two players that you need to keep track on two different sheets of paper. But the character record, you have 10 points to split between body and mind. These are the two stats that you use. Mind you will use to pass certain tests and to cast spells. Body you use to survive. You use in melee, using a variety of physical tests. Now, Mind allows you to cast spells, and there's a very neat system to cast spells, which is based on runes. You assign a number of points to Mind. Suppose I decide to assign 6 points. Then you can see this table here of the runes. You cross off the columns that are above your Mind level. So if I have Mind of 6, I cross out these two columns, 7 and 8, and the remaining ones, 2, 6, are the runes that I can use. Every time that I cast a spell, I cross off the rune or runes that I'm using to cast that spell. And here you have the number of spells, so the type of spells that you can use, and the cost in runes. So I'm like, oh, I still need one of those because I want to cast that spell. Darn, I don't have it. So really neat way here to give you a limited limited pool of magic energy, but still offering you some flexibility and some different ways of casting different things. Inventory, you start with a weapon, whichever you want. You will acquire other weapons as the game progresses. Combat, during the game, you will fight monsters. If you played fighting fantasy games, fighting fantasy game books from back then, the system is very similar. You roll a die for yourself, and you add your body value. You roll a die for the opponent, and you add their body value. Whoever has the highest total inflicts a hit on the opponent and reduces the body value of the opponent. If there is a tie, nothing happens. You reroll. You move to next turn. And then, of course, you can use spells to modify die rolls, to give yourself, for example, magic shield, re-roll dice, stuff like that. So with this system, it's very important that you inflict a quick hit on the opponent, a quick hit or two, because, well, whoever loses the first body point or second body point and creates a difference of like 2 or 3 body points, that person that is at the lowest level is not going to be able to catch up. It's going to be very hard. That is, whoever takes the first hit or two is most likely going to die. It's not a perfect system, especially when you have such a limited number of body points. If you wanted to cast some spells, you'll have maybe 4 body points. That really means you can't take many hits. But that is combat. Now, we're talking about dungeon crawling, however. When it comes to solitaire adventures, there are 2 main ways in which different game systems have handled them. One is the fighting fantasy, lone wolf, choose your own adventure system of interlinked paragraphs. That is, if you go left, go to paragraph 337. If you go right, go to paragraph 18. You move to the corresponding paragraph, read the text, read the menu of options, and move like that in the network of paragraphs. The other system, which is older than that actually, is to use random tables to generate whatever is in the dungeon. Some solitaire dungeons have already the system of rooms and hallways laid out, and then when you move into a new one, you roll on various tables to determine if there are monsters and which ones, treasures and which ones, traps and which ones, and so on and so forth. These are the main ones. There are also some other ones. For example, those are based on a map. There is a map, you move on the map, and when you enter a certain X, then that directs you to the to paragraphs, and you read what happens there. So that's more like it is the map that holds together the paragraphs rather than the paragraphs being interconnected with one another. What we have here is a hybrid between the map system that connects areas from one another and then directs you to paragraphs, and a choose your own adventure type of story with paragraphs connected with one another. You look at the map, and this is the area that you enter from. This is the staircase that you use to go down the dungeon. At the beginning, you do not have many places where you can go. There's only a single door. When you move from an area that you know to one that you do not know, you look at the grid here and you look at the coordinates of the square that you will be entering. If I go across that door, I'm gonna enter space EU. Then you look here at this part of the document showing you the various chambers. So yes, a little bit of a spoiler. You can see immediately which chambers are going to be there, and even looking at the art, get a sense of what's there. Just don't look at them too much. Some looking is unavoidable, but try not to give spoilers to yourself. So I'm looking for an area that tells me EU, and that will be the area that I just entered. Here we go, EU. So this is the area that I enter when I cross that door there. So basically now I will draw here this inverted T that you see there, and that will give me also other 2 doors and will give me an encounter. Then I go to paragraph 18 because this is an encounter with a red circle around. That means a monster immediately attacks me. I go there. The text tells me which monster I'm fighting against. If I survive, then I can move to this door and then look at the corresponding paragraph using the coordinates, or this door, or look at this encounter here, whatever it is, this pile of, I don't know, whatever it is. I don't remember what that was. And then you have another door. And you continue like this, room after room. You can also escape from a combat, in which case you take damage automatically. But the idea is that as soon as you enter another area, again, you look at the coordinates will tell you that a room that you draw next to it, and you continue like this, room after room. When you have encounters determined by numbers, you have the text that describes you what the encounter is, but very often you have a mini choose your own adventure branching tree of options. You want to do this, do that. You want to do this, go to that paragraph. So this is why you have the hybrid between the area-based, the map-based, and the textual connection-based structure. Overall, however, you only have 40 paragraphs, so it's not like there's going to be much to do. And as you can see, these are all the chambers. You're going to fight some battles, some challenging, some less, but with not that much tactical variety. If you gave yourself not a lot of body points, but a lot of mind points, then you have the challenge of staying alive, because body is both what you use to attack and what records how much health you still have. Then you have the challenge of staying alive, and you have the option of casting spells. That adds a little more tactical decisions, so that makes the game more interesting. In general, pluses and minuses, the game has a lot of those. Pluses, I think this system has a lot of potential. It is as simple as it comes, as a game can possibly be. Well, I get rock, paper, scissors a little easier then, but for Dungeon Crawler, it doesn't often get easier than this. But it works. It creates interesting actions. I like the fact that there is a sense of progressive revelation. Yes, I get a sense of what the chambers are going to be, but still it's fun to discover them. Then I look at the number that tells me what happens in that corner with this specific thing. I can still interact with things that are mysterious, weird, strange, potentially dangerous, potentially hazardous, or potentially helpful, and it's hard to determine which one is which is what I like about the dungeons, the fact that you're entering some strange, surreal environments that do not necessarily follow the rules of physics or common sense that we are used to. So I like the fact that that the system has a sense of progressive revelation, which is typical of fiction. So you have plot twists, very basic ones, but they're there. You have the surprise of not knowing what happens next. And when you have a dungeon that is based simply on rolling on tables, then you don't have that much of that, because the tables, you look at them, you already know almost their potential in the dungeon. You may not get them because you don't roll them, but you see what can be there. You do not have full surprises. Not the same sense of surprise and discovery as you have with a paragraph-based system. And the mapping system works very well. It's very simple, so I like that very much. A lot of pluses in that sense. It does what it's supposed to do. It is a dungeon adventure. You have the sense you're exploring an underground area, fighting against monsters. It's a legitimate, bona fide dungeon crawler. However, problem, it is very short. It is only one level. As you can see, as you can imagine, wherever you go, since these rooms are not a single string of rooms, but they have some variety, you may be able, who knows, you may be able to find the big bad guy after like 4 or 5 rooms, after exploring 4 or 5 rooms. Simply because it cannot possibly much further than that. So it's very short. You're gonna be able to play it in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Maybe if you die and start over, it's gonna take a little longer, but it's not gonna be that long, and it has virtually 0 replay value. Even if you decide after you win the game that you want to explore every room, again, it's not going to take you all that long when you only have 40 paragraphs, and many paragraphs are like a line or two when you only have these few chambers. So you play once, and that's it. If you are on an airplane, if you're on a train, then that's a good way of killing 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But again, if it's a long flight, then you also need to bring a lot of other stuff. That games that have more replay value. And this one doesn't have any. I mean, that's what you have when you have progressive revelation. If you have a surprise, that surprise only works once. And there are games that accept that limitation. Time Stories, Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition, those are much bigger games, but they're based on the same idea. You get a strong story, you get an intense thrill and excitement, intense sense of thrill and excitement, but you do not play it forever. This is not nearly, of course, as exciting and deep as Time Stories or Mansions of Madness, but it costs less, it takes less to play, but also it's a one-time wonder. It's a one-hit wonder. After you play it, you're done. You can find it on RPG Now for $2. This is how much I spent, and I think $2 well spent. $2 well spent. Because I enjoyed it for those 30 minutes that I played the game. I really had fun doing it. And then, well, I'll just put it in a folder, and sometimes I'll look at it and say, Crypt of Veritas. Maybe in 20 years' time I would have forgotten, so I'll play and it'll be like, oh, the first time. But life is not long enough that you can play 3 or 4 times the first time that way. So, not a bad dungeon crawler, but very small. For $2 is not a ripoff. For $2 is a perfectly reasonable dungeon. I just wish that there was an option of buying bigger dungeons. I think the system has a lot of potential, and I think that this module in particular does not get to exploit it entirely. The dungeon is fun, but it's still a little generic. I wish there had been something like a plot that was built from chamber to chamber, putting together clues. It was a little less conventional, there was a little more depth, a little more narrative meat, precisely because the system that is based on paragraphs connected with one another rather than just a map, rather than just random tables, has the possibility of building more complex stories. There's another dungeon in the same system, Out of the Dark, which I will not review independently because I can tell you is the same thing. Well, it's a different adventure, different dungeon, but same system, same one-hit wonder aspect, and also, again, it doesn't take much to play. It takes definitely less than an hour, most likely around 20 minutes, half an hour to play, and then you're done. And again, this one is $2, so again, just like for Crypt of Veritas, perfectly reasonable for $2 and 20 minutes, half an hour of entertainment. But I hope that somebody watches this video, sees the potential here and develops it, because I think there is a lot more that can be done with the system. Somebody made bigger adventures, deeper dungeons with more story in them, and even if they charge more, then I would not have a problem purchase them, because I see great potential. Crypt of Veritas is like a taste, it's like a little aperitif. It's far from being the meal, but as an aperitif, it's not a bad one.